Step 2 in building a twisted snowman.
What you want, what you want.
I'll give you a quick rundown of the supplies you should need to finish this second step. Main thing we're going to need is a batch of paper clay. That's what we're going to sculpt everything with. You know, sculpting tools, things like this are going to come in very handy when we do eyes and pull everything out for the mouth. Like I said, we're going to need either baling wire or a hanger of some type so we can make the arms, hot glue for that part as well. We'll need thin cardboard, like I stated earlier, from a Dr. Pepper box or something like that, so we can do a creepy hat to put on top of it. And that should really pretty well be it. First thing we need to do is get started on claying this thing up and sculpting out the face. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to put clay on the bottom side of this. Just get it on here, smash it out, and we're going to set it down. That way we can get flat surface, let that dry, or a flat surface will form on the bottom of this to keep our snowman stable. What I got here is a plastic lid. I recommend if you got a plastic lid or some kind of wax paper to set this on. That's your best key because it can dry up on there and you'll be able to peel it off. It won't stick to it. And it won't completely dry sitting here. You'll get most of this dry and then you're going to have to peel it off later on the side to get air to the bottom so it'll dry out. Also, I've got a little turntable. If you got one of these, use it. It makes it much easier when you're sculpting all the way around. If you don't have one, you can still get away with it, especially if you're setting on top of a little plastic lid or a piece of wax paper. You can just turn that around as you're working on it, but this makes it much easier. Another thing you guys might see right here, I went ahead and marked this as the front because earlier we marked this as the front. That way we weren't dealing with any of the creases in here when we go to carve out the face. So just a little tip there, marking the front here. That way when I wrap this all with clay, I still know where the front of my snowman's at. This is one of my favorite tools right here. This is a spoon, and this side of this is flat and it's curved a little bit. This metal spoon with a little bit of water really can smooth clay out and push it around for you and make it nice. So right now I'm just using that to blend all these edges together to get this clay to become basically one nice solid piece. Clay I'm using, basically doing the toilet paper recipe, except I'm still working with some of that old cellulose, whatever. The insulation, that stuff works great for bulking, but man, you can see, if you get a close up, you can still see big chunks of that insulation fiber in there. That's one of the reasons I really don't like this stuff a whole lot. If you're wanting to create detail, you got to deal with that. But when you're bulking out, it's not too big of a deal. And then here's the cool thing. Yeah, I know it looks like I'm spending a lot of time smoothing this out, and it is fairly smooth. This dries to a nice, almost a lumpy texture, and that looks good, especially for snow. And I'm not going to make sure it's perfectly round, because any snowman you really see, at least a real snowman out there, they're not perfect. They got dents and crevices and little things in them, and especially if we're wanting this thing to be a little on the twisted side, you don't want this thing to be absolutely perfect. So you get some dents, or you get some misshapenness in it here and there, don't worry about it. Just keep going, because the end result, it's all going to work in your favor for the end result. Alright, I know it's hard to see from your angle, but in these crevices here, I'm going to take and really push in and dig that down in deep, and then kind of pull up on this ball and pull down on that ball. That way there's some separation there, and it doesn't just kind of look like a three-tiered blob. I want it to try to look like there's a ball sitting on top of another ball. So I'm pushing all the way in to the armature to try to create that separation between the two. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the head like we did in here. We're going to create this separation line. There we go. There's our basic shape of our snowman. Now we're going to do eyes, and we're going to work on the mouth section here. I'm going to try some things I haven't done before, and we'll see if we can get this thing a little creepy. As well, I found some images on Google Images. They're pretty cool, so I'm going to try to take some of those pictures that I see and kind of blend it into this and creating this Twisted Snowman. We'll start out by putting the eyes in here, and then we'll work on the mouth area. So what I'm doing to start creating the eyes, I'm just taking this little bladed tool, digging in and getting down until I can fill the armature, and then loosening this up. Now I'm not going to cut this away or peel this away like I've done with my pumpkins in the past. I'm just going to take this and start pulling the clay down to create these eyes. Creating eyes this way, all you're doing really is just moving the clay around. You're using any tools you have available just to push and move the clay into the position that you like until you get the eyes into that shape that you're happy with. To create the mouth, I just drew out a shape that I like and actually went all the way down to the armature, dug it out, and removed that clay. Then I grabbed a bunch of clay and put it into a big ball and smashed it onto the front of our snowman as this big lower blob of a lower jaw. Then taking smaller pieces of clay, I worked up the sides and around the top to create kind of a lip ridged area. Now as we go along here, I wanted to create some kind of look within the bottom side of that jaw, so using the bottom side of the ball and using the back of my spoon, I just went in to create these kind of folds in a way. You know, maybe like the snow's kind of melted down or pushing, or like a layer of fat in underneath of that, because this jaw's really open and expressive, and I wanted those wrinkles to be in there. So pull that around the bottom all the way around the sides. And then when I got to the sides of the head and where it connected, it wasn't a smooth transition, so we just added a few more small pieces of clay to each side of the head and then continued those lines that I had with a spoon and blended it all together. Just really work this thing over until you're happy with it. You know, you want to create some gum lines in there, you want to create some lip lines. You may need to add clay or take clay away as you go. You just got to kind of look at it and get a feel for it. Once I was happy with the jaw, we just took some more clay. We created some raised brows and some extra clay up underneath, and then using a tool created extra texture and lines and wrinkles underneath that to really give the face some good expression, some mean expression to it. Alright, so we got this kind of goopy looking face going on, and it's going to look pretty cool. This lighting, you really can't see it in it, but we're going to start. We're going to use toothpicks. I'm going to use toothpicks and go ahead and insert a whole bunch of toothpicks in here to make the teeth. Hopefully they kind of stay in now. If they won't, I'll go back and re-glue them later, but we're going to work on the teeth. And what we're going to do is cut these down and keep the nice sharp tip as a tooth. I'm just breaking these off. Random sizes. Alright, so there we go. You got your teeth in. Now when you push those things in, especially since we spent this much time on this, it's getting kind of tough. It doesn't stick down in there very well. You're just going to poke it down in. Hopefully the glue is going to grab and hold these things. If it doesn't and they fall loose, we'll come back in here and stick these in with a little super glue or something like that, put them back in their spots and hold them into place. We'll see what happens when this thing dries up. I'm going to stick a couple balls on each side here for where the arm's going to connect in, and we're going to put some little choke coal chunks here and then here, and then we're going to let this thing set out and dry before we do anything else to it. And the first thing I'm going to do is figure out where I want these two spots to go for the arms. I'm just going to push in and make indentions with my fingers and then put the balls on top of the fingers. That way they're pretty well lined up and down right, and we've already got that in place. And this nose area here, we're not going to leave this. We're going to put a carrot in here sticking out, but I wanted it all wrinkled up where the carrot connected. Now I'm creating a divot in this, that way when I set this little clay ball in here, it looks like a rock was pushed into the snowman. Alright, so we got little rocks in here, got our stubs for where our arm's going to go in. Now we're just going to let this thing set out and dry before we do anything else. So we'll let this thing dry. Next thing we'll do is make a hat for it, and then we'll make arms that are going to go into it. And we can make that while this is drying. But before we attach any of that stuff up, we're going to let this thing dry up solid. Okay, so here we go. Our little Twisted Snowman here. All the clay is dried up. I let him set out for actually a couple days, because as you saw, this was just a big, thick, huge piece of clay, and it took a little bit for it to dry out. But as it dries, that clay shrinks up a little bit, and some of these toothpicks, some of them are in kind of tight, some of them are a little bit loose. But what I'm going to do is take just a little bit of straight wood glue, and I'm going to take the small toothbrush, the small paintbrush here, and go around all these little teeth and get wood glue down inside here and let that dry out so it just holds them in place. Top's already done. When I did it, just had it upside down and let it set upside down, let it dry. And now we're going to do these bottom teeth just to make sure they don't fall out later on. So the next thing we're going to work on, we're going to make the arms. We're going to do the arms first, and then we're going to do a little carrot nose here, and last thing we'll wrap up with the hats. But what we're going to work on right now is arms. We're just going to use an old hanger wire. It'll work pretty good, and we're going to have these things kind of come out and then up, and then, you know, with fingers coming out looking kind of creepy. But we're going to cheat this one a little bit. I'm only going to use a little bit of tape to kind of bulk a little bit up on these things, and then instead of macheing this, we're just going to use hot glue, and we're going to cover the arms with hot glue, and that, you'll see it by the end of it, it gives a pretty cool texture. It looks kind of like wood or a vine or whatever. It just comes across well, and it plays off and gives you the same effect without worrying about so much time as macheing it all, wait for it to dry for 24 hours, and put it on, put clay on, and then carving it out. You can do it all that way. This just speeds the process up a little bit easier, and it still has a good look to it. So that's the route we're going to take. We're only going to set about this far into it, set it in. So what I'm going to do to kind of get the look is I'm going to go ahead and bend this tab over. Flat like that. That's about all we need to go inside. And then I can flush this up against here and shape the arm how I want it. That way it's the right length. It turns out pretty good. Now that I have a general shape like I like, which will be the arm coming down and coming back out, I'll just take and make one just like this with the other piece of wire. Alright, so we got 4 pieces of wire here that we've cut out. They're going to be our hands. We're going to just hot glue these to this wire. Now, without wrapping this wire already in tape or anything like that, hot glue really doesn't bind the wire well together. It'll get on there and it'll hold it. I'm not really worried about it binding right now because we're going to cover the whole thing in hot glue at the end. And once everything's encased, it'll be okay. However, since the fact that it doesn't anchor well, I want all of these fingers to have a curl or a bend to them. And since I'm using this hanger wire and it's very stiff, I'm going to go ahead and bend most of these into a curl formation before I put them on. The only thing I really want to point out is this one right here. This is going to be the thumb, and it's already bent, as you can see. The reason for that bend is because it'll lay on here further back behind the other fingers once they're glued on to create that thumb, because your thumb's further down. So paying attention to this bend, because this side's going to go against that wire, then I need to bend this piece down like this so the bend's going in the right direction so the thumb looks correct when it's mounted up. Okay, so there we go. We got a little hand. Now, to finish this off, I'm going to put a little bend right here at the bottom of the wrist so that the hand just kind of droops down a little bit. Just like that. Now we're going to take a little tape here and I'm going to bulk these arms out a little bit, and then we're going to start running hot glue all over the entire arm. Got our arms all bulked out here, and now we're just going to start adding hot glue over it, bulking it a little more, and then laying hot glue in and bringing it all together to kind of look like a vine. Alright, so now we're going to make the nose. Our arms turn out pretty decent. May add some more hot glue to it. I made some little hot glue extensions, like some little thorns coming off of there. We may add a little more by the time it's all said and done, but you can use your imagination, go as far as you want. But right now we're going to do the nose. The nose is going to be done with Mache. We're going to bulk this out. We just need to find out about how far out we want this nose to be, and then go from there. I want this carrot nose to have a bend to it. First thing we're going to do is tape this thing up. The Mache won't stick to our piece of wire. Now we got our nose, we're just going to Mache it up. Now normally I would wait for the little nose to dry up, but I'm going to go ahead, we're going to mark a dot here, I'm going to drill it in, I'm going to go ahead and glue it into place and put a little clay behind it too and stamp it in. I think it'll dry just fine all in one piece instead of worrying about it drying later. So we're going to go ahead and put it on and we'll let it dry attached to the face. So just to help attach this and make kind of a smooth transition, I bunched a little bit of clay up on the end of this. I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to see. Experimentation is the best way to go. So I'm going to put some hot glue in here, and I'm going to bunch that up on there, and then probably have to mold it around a little bit. Now I wasn't going to do this, but I really kind of like the way the clay is looking on there, so I'm going to go ahead and give a nice thin little layer of clay all the way down this nose. Now I'm going to let this dry up overnight and it'll be good to go. Now that we got our nose in here, I'm going to go ahead and glue the arms into place. And now I'm just going to use a little hot glue to kind of build up a little of the shoulder or the wood piece here to make this more uniform. So here we go. You know, we got our arms in place, our nose is on. That needs to dry up. Once this hot glue dries down, hot glue is a little tricky. It works well. It's kind of quick. I mean, you can get a little more detail in clay sometimes, but this works quick and fast. By the time you paint it up, it'll look decent. So we're pretty well close to being done. Next thing we're going to do is make a top hat for him and call it done. So let's get busy on the top hat. So I'm not really sure what size to make this hat. I'm going to start off, I'm going to cut a piece of cardboard out the size of this lid here. You know, it's not too bad, but I want to kind of set it down on his head and see how far. See, maybe I need to make it bigger, smaller. I don't know. We'll experiment real quick and see what we need. Now, I know I said earlier that we're going to use a thin cardboard, and we are, but I really felt like the brim of the hat should at least have some kind of thickness to it. That's why I'm using a standard piece of cardboard. Now, the next thing I do is I want to cut another circle out on the inside of this so that this hat will sink down. I don't want it just resting on top of the head. And, you know, I can't really tell you, just eyeballing it. This, you know, when I put this on here, that's pretty decent, you know, for a hole on the inside of the hat, and that's what I'm going to go with. I wish I could tell you some exact measurements on this, but I'm not. I'm just playing this one by ear. Just going to use this tape roll that's almost gone. If you look at that, you know, that's about almost an inch all the way around, and that seems to be pretty decent. I think this is going to work. I like the size of it. It's not too big. It's not too small. I'm going to go with that. We're going to keep this piece here we cut out because we're going to use that as the top side of our top hat. Now, my idea here with this is we're going to use this paper towel roll, cut this out, I'm going to slit it in half, spread it out, and probably have to use 2 of these to go all the way around. I think this will work out fine with this. I think for what I need, the distance I want, I'm thinking for our cut would be 4 inches because we're going to take a 1/2 inch off the bottom and fold it over to attach it. I think 4 inches will get us where I want to be. We're going to do the same thing with the other second part. We're going to mark it off at 4 inches and at 3.5 inches as well. Alright, we got 2 tubes, basically 4 inches long. I'm just going to cut these right in half. Now we're going to take and cut up just to that other mark we made. Now we'll take all these little cuts we made and just bend these over. And what that's going to do is that's going to give us something to bite onto on the bottom of the hat to glue it to it. So to give you guys little dimensions, if you want to make this hat exactly like this hat is just about 5 1/4 outside diameter across here. Our inside hole is basically 3 1/4 on here. So that will get you your 2 pieces, 5 1/4 here across, 3 1/4 on your circle here across. And then like you just saw, you cut it at 4 inches and marked one off at 3.5 inches. So we get this, we cut 2 of those, and that pretty much gets us all the way around this hat. There's a little bit of space in between, but it doesn't matter because we're going to mache this all in one piece, and I'm also going to bend this over and kind of crumple it up, and that'll give us some give before we mache it up. First thing we're going to do is just hot glue these 2 pieces to the upper hat. We got our top piece all glued together. Now we're just going to glue it to the brim of the hat. There we go, an instant little top hat for Snowman. So literally I just smashed this thing down, and then I'm going to mache this all together, but I'm going to mache into these folds and leave all those, try to leave as many of these creases as possible, but just try to make it look like it's a uniform crease. But I just want it to look like it's a natural fold over on a hat, like a hat that's been crushed that was all together. And I think that'll work. It's not going to take a whole lot of mache for this. Indoor decoration, not going outside. Doesn't have to be crazy stout. Just a hat, just for an added feature for our Twisted Snowman. So working on the hat here, I'm going to use a paintbrush and put this on to kind of brush it into place. Sometimes I feel like I have a little more control on the way the paper lays when I do it this way. Hundreds of ways that you can lay strip mache. This is just one of them. I don't particularly use one more than the other. I just use what I feel like seems fit at the point in time. And then another thing I'll point out here, I'm using phone book newspaper because it's very thin and pliable, and it'll fold to these creases much better than trying to force standard newsprint to do that. There we go. A little crushed over top hat for our snowman. Gonna look pretty good. Honestly, with just this cardboard, I'm probably not going to really mache many more layers than that. That's probably going to be enough, especially on this brim. We'll call it good. So stay tuned for step 3. In step 3, we're going to paint. We're going to do the finish paint, glue the hat on, and add paint details and put the light in and cut his eyes out and finish him all up. If you guys like these kind of tutorials, subscribe, give this thing a big thumbs up, share it to people you know, and I'll look forward to you guys next time, and keep making something from nothing.